Welcome, everybody. How are you? Thank you, fellas, for joining us in this new episode. We're so glad to find you with you again on this channel, on this YouTube channel, where we're talking about Mexican soccer, food mix in English. And I'm glad to join again in this time with Jesús Bernal. Chuy, how are you? How's everything?
Fine, Chema, I'm fine. Glad to be back with you and with you all, with you guys too, and ready to speak about and talk about all the new topics about Liga MX.
We're gonna discuss in this episode. We're gonna have a little. I'm not sure if it's gonna be a discussion, but we're gonna have a debate about these new statements that Cuauhtémoc Blanco made yesterday. If you haven't heard about him, we're gonna listen about what Cuauhtémoc Blanco said yesterday in Spanish. He's talking about who is the best player in Mexican soccer and the history. He was not talking about just the three guys on the forward. So we're going to listen in Spanish, Cuauhtémoc Blanco, about who was the best player in Mexico.
Gobernador, y nos quedaba la duda, algunos comentarios deportivos lo señalaban con la selección mexicana en esta parte frontal del deporte, decía usted, uno de los mejores jugadores. ¿Se pone usted al nivel de Hugo Sánchez y el Chicharito? O sea, ¿es usted el tercero? ¿Top 3?
¿Cómo crees? Yo me siento mejor que ellos, hijo. Así te lo digo, pero mucho mejor. Aunque ellos han jugado en varios equipos, y eso yo no lo digo yo, lo dice toda la gente. Yo no me comparo ni con Chicharito ni con Hugo, cada quien hizo su historia. Y pues pregúntale, yo califiqué a la selección en 2 mundiales. Estamos a punto de no ir, con la ayuda igual de mis compañeros. Pero pues toda la gente dice que soy mejor que ellos, pero bueno, yo se lo dejo a la gente y no lo digo yo.
So let's come now the interesting part. What do you think about what the Cuau said? Is he really the best player in Mexico history? But he just forgot Rafa Marquez. And he made it in 5 World Cups. Can he be in this topic? Can he join in this debate? Or only we need to talk about Hugo and Chicharito? What do you think, Chuy?
For me, he is like 2 steps behind Hugo Sánchez and Rafa Marquez, and one behind Chicharito. And you can see the numbers and the facts and whatever you want. Chicharito is the player who has scored more goals with the national Mexican team. Rafa Marquez is the only Mexican player to win the Champions League twice. He did it twice.
Not in the pitch.
Yeah, one on the pitch, the other one he was benched, right?
Yeah.
And Hugo Sanchez is the only Mexican player to become a 5 times Pichichi in Spain. So I think there's no argument to say that. If you want to separate the story and say who's the best player for the Mexican national team, probably Cuauhtémoc Blanco can compete because he did more than Hugo Sanchez, and that's it. He played along Rafa Marquez in the Confederations Cup in 1999. Yeah. But Chicharito played. Chicharito scored in 3 different World Cup.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Cuauhtémoc did 2, and Rafa did 2. Rafa, even though he was a defender, he scored in 3 different World Cups.
He scored in Brazil, he scored in South Africa, and he made it
in Germany against Argentina.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that's right. So they are kind of even in that spot at the Mexican national team. So for me, he's not the best in the history, but he can be fighting to be the best playing wearing the Mexican national team jersey.
That can be debatable. I think there's something that the Cuau even said. Okay, there's a lot of history, and Chicharito made it in different top teams in Europe. He made 20 goals for Manchester United. He was in Real Madrid when sharing dress room with Cristiano, even that. He was top scorer in Bundesliga. He came back into Premier League, and he's the top scorer in a Mexican team. But there's something that any not any single guys we just mentioned did what Cuau did, and he took the Mexican team to the World Cup in 2010 in South Africa and 22 in Korea and Japan, because when hard times were about to take out from Mexican team out of the fighting, not the qualifying for the World Cup, there was when Del Cuau appeared, and by his hand and El Vasco Aguirre hand also, they took to the Mexican team when the hard times were about taking Mexico to lose that chance. And in the hard times, Rafa Marquez in that game against United States in Korea and Japan, he just got the red card. And Chicharito, I think it's okay, but in the hardest times, Chicharito is not having his best performance about disciplinary issues. And Rafa Marquez, and that's something that I'm not sure if in the hard times all of these guys were on the same level. That's what I
No,
think that Cuau needs to be treated on a separated way.
but in the hard times during the World Cups, Cuauhtémoc Blanco didn't do nothing either. He wasn't capable to take Mexico to the
Yeah,
quarterfinals.
and Hugo
He did,
Sanchez did. He wasn't, and he just got to the fifth game.
yeah,
He
in
didn't get to
Mexico
the
against
quarterfinal.
against Germany, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
Cuauhtémoc couldn't do that. Rafa couldn't make it. Chicharito couldn't make it. So yeah, I mean, we can say that Cuauhtémoc Blanco was so helpful for the Mexican national team twice, before the 2002 World Cup and before South Africa World Cup too. But when I mean, the only epic moment that Cuauhtémoc Blanco was brilliant was in the Confederations Cup, right?
yeah, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, we're pretty sure about that. And another thing we can even not even debate, but when El Cuau was in his prime, Ricardo Lavolpe just decided not to take him to Germany in 2006.
He
And there's
did.
something that we can never know if Cuauhtémoc Blanco could be helpful for the national team on that World Cup, because he was on a constantly fight with Osvaldo Sanchez, Jared Borghetti, and all those guys who made from El Tri their belong. And those players were like the Chiefs with La Volpe, and had a constantly fighting internal fights with Cuauhtémoc. There's something that we can never know, but we can ask our friends that let us their comments right here below and tell us what do they think, who was the best, who has the better performance in Europe, because we're talking about the performance, individual performance in Europe. El Cuau has nothing to do against Chicharito and against Hugo Sanchez and even Rafa Marquez, because he only played for Valladolid. He was only one season, and he had to came back to Mexico because that injury he had in that qualifying against Trinidad and Tobago, and he couldn't make it and finish even that season after that goal he made in Santiago Bernabéu against Real Madrid. Too.
Yeah, I mean that's and not only that, he only became champion once in Mexico with America, and that's the only championship he has.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues we need to talk about that.
I mean,
Well,
he's so talented. We can say that he has a lot of talent, but I think he wasn't able to expose that talent in higher levels.
higher level. Oh, now at this part, can we talk about one player on the top? Can be Rafa, can be Hugo, or even Javier.
For me, Rafa. Why? Because he's the only Mexican player to win the the Champions League twice,
Champions League.
and he was part of the best team in the world. He was part of it. Obviously, Hugo Sanchez could be the best forward in the world during the 80s and the 90s, but he played for a team that wasn't the best, you know?
Yeah, and Hugo couldn't make it on the different World Cups in different circumstances. He couldn't be in Italy 90. He didn't play in United States 94. There's a lot of different reasons. That's why Hugo Sanchez couldn't make it in national team. He couldn't make it on El Tri.
No, he couldn't.
Even Dan, Rafa Marquez Dan made it on 5 different World Cups.
He did. And yeah, I think that's like something that Hugo Sanchez could have done, but he didn't make it. To be a good player for the Mexican national team. So you remember 1994, he didn't even get in the pitch against Bulgaria.
Yeah, that game, that's unforgettable. I still have it in my mind the way he was talking with Mejia Baron, and they couldn't get anywhere because Mejia Baron he did something specifically in the pitch, but Hugo wanted to be in the forward, and that's why they couldn't be in agreement. So that's why we never know. We could never know what could be in that game against Bulgaria with Hugo on the pitch. So Chuy,
Yeah.
we have to leave now, and it's time to say thank you to all our friends, and we hope to join again in these days. So we hope we can have some quite nice days in this Holy Week, and we can be having a lot of more content in this channel for you guys on and this Food Mix in English. Chuy, thank you very much, and have a nice week.
Thank you, Chema. Have a nice week too, and thank you to all our fans. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much.
Thank you.